Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie comic interview. It is your Capes Crusader, Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our new friend, Christopher of GlobalComix. We are back after 3 trials of error with trying to get this off the ground. Thank you, Chris, for being patient and letting me get the troubleshooting out of the way. It looks like smooth sailing's ahead. So, Chris, without further hesitation, let's go ahead and just start diving into who you are and what GlobalComix is.
Cool, yeah, thanks for having me on board.
All right, so yeah, we were talking a little bit earlier about it, but since we're live and on the record, how did you come up with this application? You know, GlobalComix seems like such an awesome concept. I love how you're reaching out and helping indie comic creators get a much larger platform to get their voice out there. How did you come up with this idea? It seems so awesome.
Well, you know, I grew up in Norway, and what I had access to when I was a kid was always much less than what you would have access to here, or like take, you know, if you're into manga or whatever in Japan or some other country. And, you know, I grew up with some stuff that I really fell in love with. And then I moved to Germany and I no longer had access to that. And then I found some new stuff in Germany, and then I moved to, you know, San Francisco for a while, and I didn't have access to that stuff anymore. And then, you know, I'm like, all right, well, let's go back to Europe, and I ended up in France for a while. I was actually working as community manager for Blizzard Entertainment, like way back 12, 13 years ago. And I was using comics in France to learn French. Like, it was the best way for me. But of course, you know, I didn't have access to stuff from Norway, and I didn't have access to stuff from Germany. And around this time, I was getting into Japanese comics also. And the thing that really annoyed me the most was, you know, these series were 18 months behind internationally. And I was like, there's got to be a better solution to this. We have the internet, we have the technology. And so, you know, like a couple of years later, when I actually had some proper time, and I was living in New York and had a right network, and, you know, I had some friends that were mentoring me in development. You know, I'm like, all right, well, now's the time to do it. You know, so I kind of started as a side project back in 2015. The first, you know, year and a half was mostly learning how to code and get the pages to display and like all of that kind of stuff. And then I'd say, you know, like the next 2.5 years was eventually we got it out to public beta, but I was still working on a side project, and I went from hacking shit together to kind of engineering and architecting software, and I was, you know, feeling really good about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, like at the end of 2019, this company that I was at was shuttering down, and the CEO of the company and I had become, you know, pretty good friends and pretty close and whatever. And, you know, I told him, well, I have this side project. This is what I'm going to do next. And he's like, what is it? So, you know, I told him about GlobalComix, and I told him about this idea that I had that bringing all of the world's comics, you know, online for every country and every language, and kind of living into this crowdsourcing ability of the internet for localizations. Something that's actually, you know, taken us till this year before we're able to get started. Was a big dream of mine, right? And also, you know, comics, even 3 years ago, especially all the Western comics, were still not really digitally adopted. I mean, yes, it kind of was in Comixology, but Comixology wasn't available everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're in Europe, you kind of got shafted there. And like everything was kind of fragmented. So, you know, like all of these things were kind of like big inspirations to me. But then, you know, ultimately the thing that like, why don't I make this a business was, you know, seeing the advent of Twitch and of YouTube as far as making a viable creator economy, right? Like having a digital outlet where creators could actually be successful, make money, like build fandom, all of that kind of stuff online. And I didn't really feel like there was anywhere that was doing that correctly. And so, you know, that's kind of why I doubled down into all of it, and why, you know, we've been experimenting with some rather unique monetization models as we've gone through, you know, iteration until now.
That is such an outstanding, like, history. Oh man, I would have never guessed everything that went into it. Did you have any experience coding before you started this, or was that something you just learned along the way?
I mean, I'm at an age now where, and there are probably some listeners that will recognize this, but like back when I was a teenager, right, like I'd write scripts for like these IRC clients and whatever, and it wasn't really programming, but like I understood the concept of, code and logic. And then with GlobalComix, it really was like, I'm going to take, an application that a friend had made and like reverse engineer how the coding patterns work, and then like take those patterns and start applying them on my own. But the biggest kind of help was a really good friend of mine. His name's Josh Levine. He was the VP of engineering at Shapeways, which is a company that I was working at as a product manager while I was in New York. He's like, you know what, like if you want to learn, like I'm going to push you as hard as you've never been pushed before.
Sometimes that's all you need is that hype man. Yeah.
And he really, he really did an amazing job in teaching me how do I make things that scale and that aren't hacked together, and that, he always talked about development like scaling on 3 vectors, right? Like it scales on features, and it scales on people, and it scales on users. And if you can make something that scales on all of those 3, then you have, like really good software. Yeah,
and I think it's funny you were mentioning being able to give creators a platform where they can make, more money, or essentially almost a living. Like Twitch with when you get a subscriber, it takes 50% of that. So a subscription is $5, they take $250. So you get $250. So I mean, you have to get a crap load of subscribers. And in that same equation, not only that, you're making them just as much as you're making yourself. Like, so every dollar you're making them just that same amount, because they're taking 50% of the cut.
Yeah, it's a big cut. Although, like, to be fair, isn't a lot of the income from Twitch like with advertisements?
Yeah, there is ads, but you'd be surprised. So like as a Twitch streamer myself, I never run ads. Almost 100% of my fun is through subscriptions. You can get things called bits, which is like like digital currency. So like stars like on Facebook and stuff. But yeah, I've been doing it for 6 years on job for Cody, and like I've never really, because ads, I like when you're watching a YouTube video, what's the first thing you do? You skip the ad,
Yeah, exactly.
So you're trying to watch me. I got 15 seconds to impress you. Like, you don't want to watch an ad. You want to watch me, or you're never going to come back, We have CM Holly over on Twitch saying, geeking it up on the Thursday. Of course, we're here with the man of the hour, breaking down this awesome platform, GlobalComix. Any questions, feel free to let us know in the chat. But yeah, so let's go ahead and start diving back into this. How many creators do you have on the platform, and how many comics would you say an estimate that you have available right now?
We have over, I think, like almost 11,000 books at this point.
Wow.
As far as creators, it's a little bit hard to tell because like some come and go, but it's in the thousands at this point.
That is insane. 11,000. So what type of like server do you have to have for this? Like the database, like do you have like just a room like with big like servers dedicated to this?
Nope. If I told you that my hosting fees were around $600 total, you would never believe me. Like if I hadn't already just told you about like the scalability part. Right, like we can scale infinitely as far as server capacity goes, and we've architected things in like separate, you call them microservices, right? And so kind of like your storage is decoupled from your web layer, and your database is decoupled from everything, and you can add like infinite amounts of these nodes, as we call them, as needed. And so like when we have really big traffic, we can say, okay, well, for the next 5 hours, we're going to turn on 3 more nodes, and then like turn them off again when spike traffic goes down. And so like we're able to be really, really frugal, but still maintain really high performance on our accessibility.
So how do you do that? Like, do you have to just sit at a computer all day long and monitor it, or do you have like alerts that like trigger you? Like, how are you able to stay on top of it like that?
I mean, sometimes you can plan for spikes, right? Like if we're doing big announcements or whatever. But then, AWS has like services that just lets you do, like if load gets above a certain level on the types of nodes, it'll say spawn 3 more or something like that. And you can do the same kind of thing with DigitalOcean, right? And so it's kind of like you have this programmatic environment where you say, well, if our web servers are 80% CPU capacity, spawn a new one and just add it to the pool, and then it'll sit there for a while until like the average load goes down to a certain place, and then like remove it again.
That it's, as someone like on the outside, that is a lot for me to take in, but it is so interesting to listen to how that works, because I would have never guessed in a million years that's how it operates. We have J. Michael Miller over on YouTube saying the new AWA deal was cool to see. We're actually going to be breaking that down as well. We have a CM Holly on Twitch saying, I keep starting my GlobalComix page but never finish. How many views do books usually average, and what's the actual percentage of people converting from free viewers to paid consumers?
So that's a really great question. The conversion from free to paid depends on the book, or it depends on the series, right? And so like on average, like if you take the entire site, you can get somewhere between like 7.5%, like 8%. For certain books, you can go up to like 15-20%, depending, right? Mm-hmm. And then for others, you might be at a lower level. And kind of like, I'd say, like there's kind of two conversion funnel points that we think about. It's going from being an anonymous reader to creating an account, and then from creating an account to becoming a paying reader. And there's inherently a lot of value in the first step, even before the paid level, because with an account you can follow creators, you can follow publishers, you get automatic notifications on your email and on the site, on the platform, and with our upcoming mobile application, you'll get mobile app notifications, like publisher X that you're following put out 5 new books today, and you can just start reading that way, right? And so at this point, before we put out the app, we're super focused on getting people into the ecosystem more so than the monetization part, because the conversion to paid is going to be very different in an in-app experience than when you're on a website.
Yeah, and the more people you have in that ecosystem, the more potential they have to become paid consumers down the road. I think that's a good strategy as well, because for me as like a consumer, if I am getting like the buying aspect shoved down my throat too early, like it's easier for me to leave than it is to stay,
Yeah, it's about, well, see, that's the thing, right? Like it's about developing a relationship between you as the consumer and the creator or the publisher and the stories and the content, right? And like when you are properly hooked on a story and you're like, oh man, I really like these people that are creating this, that's the right time for you as a fan to be prompted with, well, help support them financially too, right? Like it costs them money to make these things. I personally really don't like those experiences where you go to a site and like the first thing you see is a paywall, and there's like, it's so impersonal. Like I don't like that at all.
So I really like too how you're able to come up with all these algorithms for indie comic creators. The one that really struck my interest the most was after 10 days, that's when a reader is going to stick with you, or if they're going to stop reading your book. I thought that was really interesting. How are you able to come up with all these different algorithms and studies? What all goes into that feature?
I mean, there's a lot of data, right? Like we track a lot of behavior, and like for the most part, like all of that is tracked, at an aggregate level, like not on an individual basis. But so we get things like, if we take a sampling of 50 books and we take, a look at the 100,000 people that came to 50 books, right? And so we say, how far did they read before they stopped? And depending a little bit on the book, obviously, but like, it gets to a point where if you kind of like think of over here is your top level, like everyone entered, and over here is kind of like the end of the book. The graph kind of like goes like this, right? And it flattens out after around 10 pages. And so what you see is, 100% of people came in on page 1. And by the time page 10 comes around, 35-40% of people are continuing. And then the drop off between page 10 and like the last page, it's negligible. It's like 1, 2, 3% or something like that.
So
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say you also offer the opportunity to like offer a few pages for free and then charge a paywall after that. Are you able to do like 10 where they're able to give the first 10 pages for free and then after that offer the paywall?
Well, it's not even just 10 pages, right? Like it always like bugged me so much with the comics industry in digital format, and that like either there's a paywall or there's not, right? And sometimes you might be looking at a floppy, and then maybe it's the first floppy for you, right? Like 24, 28, 32 pages, and that's cool. But then maybe it's actually a graphic novel that's like 150, 170 pages, and it's actually just one book, right? And so we were like, well, we need to put the paywall like custom so that the folks that know the stories and creating the stories can give enough of a free preview inside of a book, but then also put the paywall at the right hook, right? Like whether it's a cliffhanger or whatever that is, right? And so you can choose, like, you can put your paywall wherever you want. You can put it on page 5, you can put it on page 50, you can put it on page 145 for that matter, right? So giving creators control to like experiment and play and figure out like what works the best is an ethos that we very much believe in here at GlobalComix.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. I love how focused you are on the creator. With that being said, what are you guys aiming to do? Like, how are you guys aiming to set yourself apart from other platforms out there that give indie comic creators, a place to put their comic? What are you guys striving to do? I know when you started this, it was to get comics out there across the globe, due to your love for them. But with that being said, what are you doing now to kind of just take that vision and move forward with it?
So I think, like for the folks that are looking to publish for money, we have 3 different monetization models that work at this time, and they're not mutually exclusive either, right? Like we have at the simplest form a donation system, similar to Patreon. You can subscribe to a creator directly, set up a monthly recurring donation, whatever sum you want above $3, right? And for those creators, the revenue share is like really good. It's like between 92 to 95% in their favor. Then kind of like the second layer is the subscription and the paywall setup, right? Which is where you're actually putting a paywall on the content and you're requiring people to pay to access. And so it goes from kind of like a meritocracy, super fan, let me build a community and like get people that are donating to me model, into a, well, I'm doing this commercially and like, here's where I need to draw the margin. Right? And we see kind of like smaller indie creators tend to prefer the donation model first before, like they don't really go to a paywall until they've established a following, established a brand and like, a fan base. Oh, and I should mention, right, like you can actually reward your followers on the donation model with early access. So you can say, the folks that have donated to me get to read it, 1 to whatever weeks before other people.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
And the last thing that we're like adding on now is digital downloads, right? So PDF sales. And this is straight up an e-commerce model, right? Like there's a book, you set a price on it and people go and they purchase it and they download it and it's uniquely theirs. And like, you asked the question, what are we doing for creators that are setting us apart? Like, I don't think that there's any other place that lets you actually choose the type of monetization or like even offers up these possibilities, right? And I don't think we're necessarily done there. We have other ideas that we're exploring for the future that we can't really talk too much about yet. But the idea around like monetization is no one creator is absolutely 100% identical from the other, and like people need the optionality for what type of publishing suits best for them. Outside of monetization, I'd say, like as far as Western comics go, the platforms that are there are very much iTunes type catalogs, right? Like it's not a community. It's kind of like it's an e-commerce purchasing experience. There's nothing social about it. There's no, kind of like following in comments and like engaging in reactions and like these types of things that makes it fun for the reader to like be part of this universe. And like that's a very big thing for us because GlobalComix is as much of a social destination as it is a publishing and like consumption place. So creators and publishers build up their following. People come on the platform, they follow them, they get notifications, they can interact, they can comment. Creators can post their own status updates and links and like these types of things, and that go into their feed and their followers' feeds.
So, sorry to interrupt. So what would you say like would be some of the best tips or pieces of advice you'd give to creators on the platform to help kind of build that following, to kind of get that engagement and help promote it?
There's two things I'd say. The main CTA that you want to use when you're like, hey, I'm on GlobalComix, is follow me on GlobalComix, link to profile, right? Like keep it super clear and keep it super simple. And the second is if you are sharing your comics directly, don't share your comic profile page that has the list of the chapters. Link to chapter 1, page 1. I can tell you from data that you will get 10 times as many readers if you go that route than if you just share a page that requires someone to make a choice before reading.
That and a lot of people don't consider that, but it is 100% true. We were talking about that earlier when I was telling you, like when I go live on Twitter, it automatically has the video, but then it directs to the link. For whatever reason, people just do not like clicking that link. So given that option to make them start on page 1, they have to, click the next page, so it puts them in that reading mode as opposed to like just selecting one. That's pretty genius.
I mean, it's kind of the premise of the internet, right? Like remove as many barriers as you possibly can and you get people engaging. Like put up, like these little hindrances that you got to kind of like jump over. People are going to stumble and fall and be like, I don't want to make a choice right now. Like close.
So real quick, before we actually dive into the website, because I wanted to take a look at it a little bit in depth with you. What are some of the qualifications to getting on GlobalComix? I mean, what are like some of the things that you look for? Is anyone able to get on? And I guess like what are the things that would get you denied access to uploading?
Denied access. Well, we're actually kind of on the more lax side. However, if you publish pornography, first I'll be nice and I'll message you and I'll say like, I've removed your thing, please don't publish it again. Like, there's certain like certain level of content policy where it moves from like nudity is okay, don't get me wrong, but if the purpose of the story is like genitalia in action, GlobalComix is not for you. And the second one is like denigration of people or animals or whatever, right? Like in hate speech. There are some exceptions, right? Like let's say you're making a comic about World War II, having the Nazi soldiers use their salutes and whatever, like perfectly fine, right? But if you're making a comic where the protagonist is someone that's like, racially going after some other group or whatever that is, and being like, oh yeah, this person is so cool for that, like also not for you, right? Like it's that kind of it's the kind of environment where it's okay to have risky stories and it's okay to have something that's a little bit outside of the norm, but don't make it hate based, right? Like just be cool people.
So how are you able to go through so many comics? I mean, you said you had roughly about 11,000 on the site. I mean, that just seems like so many to have to filter through.
I mean, we don't really filter through everything. We kind of have a reporting system, and so it's easier to do it that way. There's also some like legal reasons for why we need to do it that way, right? Like if we were to pre-filter everything, then we also become legally liable for everything.
Okay.
It's part of that like DMCA 512 kind of clause on digital content publishing. But like we do have, some machine learning stuff that will like go in and say, this is entirely, erotica or whatever. And so we'll go in and like manually look at that, take a snapshot. But that's like much easier to do because the majority of people that are publishing content are actually just publishing really dope comics. So it's it's not like, you know, there's a huge backlog of, oh my God, we got to go through this. Maybe in the future, but hey, like.
So, are you guys looking at doing, I know you do digital, but any sort of like print on demand, like in the future, or any sort of like direction to get like printed comics as a viable like purchase option?
Yes and yes.
Let's go. Let's go.
How I was gonna answer that. So, first part, if you are a comic creator and you have your own e-commerce shop, whether it's Shopify or Wix site, or you have your own WordPress thing or whatever that is, right? Like, if you have an e-commerce site for your comic, you can put direct purchase links for every single book that you publish on GlobalComix into the reading experience, so that while you are reading it as a reader, like right below the page, it'll say, hey, this thing is actually available in print. Are you interested in buying it? Right? Like, click and it takes you into the print e-commerce experience off-site, not hosted by us. The second level is kind of like, you know, digital publishing, digital print on demand. It's something that we're really, really, really interested in. As the research that I've been doing on the, you know, what the services are from these businesses that offer print on demand, programmatically, it's really kind of terrible, right? Like, it's not a good developer experience, and not something that we currently feel we can integrate with and give high customer satisfaction, right? Because, you know, like, there's so many components to that, right? Like, it's the quality checking of the design assets as they're made. There's the sizing and fitting and trimming, right? There's, you know, the color spectrum, CMYK versus RBG, like all of that, right? And then there's like paper choice and shipping method and like how's it wrapped, and it's like all of these things that, you know, like just simply aren't there from a services level that you can like interact with programmatically. So I've kind of gotten to the conclusion that if we're gonna do print on demand, then we're gonna do it right, and we're gonna find a partner with, you know, an array of digital printers, and we'll develop that capability ourselves.
That is awesome.
We don't have like any timeline on that, but that's something that, you know, we're actively thinking about.
Okay, and I mean, I gotta ask, since we're in that ballpark too, any plans to do like any sort of like crowdfunding on a GlobalComix, where people essentially maybe might be able to start do like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but on your platform?
I don't really have plans of doing crowdfunding per se. Like, we'd rather, like, there are companies out there, like recently a newcomer, Zoop, right? Like that are focused specifically on comics crowdfunding, and like they do that really well because they are focused. That is their business.
Yeah.
And for that kind of thing, we'd much rather partner with those companies, or at the very least, like what we have now, give creators the optionality to promote their crowdfunding through GlobalComix as an ecosystem, right? Creators can, you know, as per today, whether it's Indiegogo or GoFundMe or Zoop or Kickstarter, any of those services, indicate when they are crowdfunding, put up those crowdfunding banners on their profile pages, on the comic pages, and inside the reading experience for readers to discover, right? Like, back me, I'm running this project, I'm raising X on Y platform. But it's, you know, like crowdfunding, I've thought about this idea, like it might be cool if the digital printing part like becomes a good thing, but people want, you know, like that offset level print quality, to do kind of smaller run crowdfunding on print, where it's more like we will print a run of this when, say, 100 people purchase you know, the book. And so it's kind of more like a pre-order than crowdfunding, if you kind of get what I'm going at there.
We have Erica Tapper over on YouTube saying, Zoop, there it is. And this is the only non-black t-shirt that Chris owns. I think he's actually wearing a black t-shirt. It's a hoodie he's wearing on top of it.
Eric,
you've been fooled. Welcome to the stream, Eric. How are you doing? Yeah, that is so awesome. I mean, I keep wanting to get to actually looking at the website, but I keep every time you talk, it like inspires a brand new question. Last question, and then we'll move on to looking at the actual website. We had J. Michael Miller mentioned it earlier, and I know you mentioned it before we actually went live, but the AWA deal. Let's break that down.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned like at the start of this interview that one of the things we wanted to do was bring comics in like every language accessible to everyone around the world. Right. And when I started GlobalComix, I think I was perhaps a little bit too optimistic of like how easy it would be to like get to that point and just like, oh, I'm going to make some software that does that. Kind of, you know, not factoring in a lot of the relationship building and the human element. So, you know, like when this year, we've gotten to a point where we have really good relationships with a bunch of creators and with a bunch of publishers. We were looking at, you know, like, well, how can we start developing the capability internally for a localization program, right? And starting with how can we pick one of our partners that are doing professional production of comics and offer them, we will like localize whatever set of next books that they have into X languages. So we kind of started that conversation with a couple of partners, and we landed on AWA because we share so many similar values of what it means to do comics and what it means to go global with comics, to a global fandom, and kind of like how to kickstart and bootstrap building a universe, which is what they're doing with their Lesser Evils franchise. And so, you know, it kind of just went from there. You know, we reach out like, hey, we're really interested in trying localization. Oh, that's cool. What languages do you want to do? I don't know. Which languages do you want to do, right? and so we had this conversation of like, well, where are comics regions? French and Spanish were kind of a given, right? Because even in the US, like there's a big Spanish speaking population, and in the world too. French also has like a lot of readers spread out beyond France, right? Like Belgium, Luxembourg, etc., and some other places, islands and whatever. And like Brazilian Portuguese was another one where we're like, oh yeah, there's a disproportionate amount of folks that are reading digital comics from Brazil. Compared to every other country, I'd say that's like the biggest comic reading country that is non-English speaking in the entire world. And before people call me out on this, yes, I recognize Japan, Korea, and China, but I don't really consider that for the sake of like Western comics. Manga, manhwa is a thing also. Yes.
So speaking of that, we actually had Art Crumbs saying it's so funny that you have a black t-shirt on in true CEO fashion, but also they said they were so stoked for this multi-language aspect going forward. It'll be fantastic for manga, manhwa, and I can't pronounce what's the last one you did. Oh, and we looks like we're having technical difficulties. He might have accidentally closed out, and there he is. Boom.
Well,
welcome back.
That was unfortunate.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we got to mentioning that, and he's out.
Yeah, no, I accidentally drugged the tab into.
Not a. Hey, I had so many technical difficulties in the beginning of this. You're allowed at least one.
So you were saying Art Crumbs.
Art Crumbs was saying they were so stoked for this multi-language aspect going forward. It'll be fantastic for manga, manhwa, and I cannot pronounce the last one. I suck at pronunciations. I'm so sorry down the line. So much potential for this moving forward. So yeah, that is so cool. I'm really interested in this as well. So where do you see this deal like in the future to come? Like, where do you guys see yourself like, you know, maybe a year or two down the line with this?
So this is where I'm going to put on my product manager hat, right? And I'm going to say like, okay, well, the first thing that we've done is we've developed the understanding of what's the workflow, what are the quirks, like what's required, what are the gotchas, and so we're going to do a couple more manual localizations where, you know, we have a team of folks that can do localizations into more or less any language, right? And so we'll work kind of hands-on with publishers or creators to facilitate these localizations. We'll bring them live. When we have kind of like the right level understanding of what that flow is, we can start writing software and processes that automate it, right? And that action is already kind of taken in, you know, the comic scene online, most often not from a legit fashion. But there's a lot of learnings to be had in like how people are working on that. And I can very much see, you know, like in a year or two, that there's interfaces on GlobalComix for saying, you know, I want this book localized in these languages.
Wow.
And then having like other teams of folks saying like, well, we can do that. We'll bring, you know, like a quality checker, a proofreader, a typesetter, an editor, a redrawer, whatever that is, right? Like we'll do that.
This is so cool.
And like version 1 might be, you know, do the localization in a Google Sheets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of environment. Version 2 might be you actually do the typesetting just directly in the browser, and that like GlobalComix has the interface for doing a side-by-side, right? Like, and then, you know, like saying, okay, well, we can do it for free, or we can do it for an upfront fee, or we can do it for a revenue share, or you know, whatever. And then having the GlobalComix platform be entirely self-serve, where we can connect these localization folks with creators or publishers, and they can just like get together and like help spread the comics out without us.
Wow.
Right.
So,
and like that point, I'd say like that's the point where when we're there, we're really there. And that's where like comics is like international always.
So how do you feel? I mean, like this seems like it was like your idea to begin with, like the very soul of what you started, like is actually coming to light. That has to be such a remarkable feeling for you, right?
I mean, dude, I was not expecting that it'd take me, you know, 5-6 years to get here, and we're still not there with like the localization. But like every single day is like a rewarding feeling. You know, like I see new creators coming on board and they're tweeting about it, they're messaging us about it. You know, like it's just like, oh man, this is real. Like people actually appreciate and like what we're doing, and you know, like the platform and think that it's correct for them and their business and their fandom, right? And like that is like the most rewarding.
That's
most
awesome.
Rewarding part. But you know, like having a really long-term goal and like slowly inching towards it, and like as you get closer, you kind of like identify, oh well, we need this piece and this piece and this piece, and then you find ways of like achieving those, and then like you get closer and closer and closer, and then, you know, at some point in the future be like, how the hell did we do all the things that we just did? We're here now. We have everything now.
We have Art Crumb saying localization is going to be so powerful, literally putting the global in GlobalComix. So much good content put behind language barriers right now. That is absolutely true. The same thing I think goes for a lot of like different mediums, like films, books. There's so much good stuff out there that like I'll never be able to read because I don't understand other languages. So the fact that you guys are doing this literally does put the global in your name, like, because it just, there's no place that can hide from you guys. You know, if there's a place out there that needs comics, you're gonna put them in their hands.
Well, that might have been part of the reason for the name.
So let's go ahead and actually dive into it. I think right now is a perfect segue. All right, so I need to pull this up on my screen. So right here, we are looking at the homepage, and I want to make sure it's, yep, good. The homepage of GlobalComix. So this is what it looks like right off the rip. We have popular last week mystery. This is actually one of my good friends, Stokes, issued Decay issue number 1, currently running a Kickstarter for issue number 2. So I was really happy to see his book on here as a popular last week mystery. And then just all sorts of different ones popular from the publishers to follow. And then, you know, indie comics. I mean, it seems like there's just everything and in between as well. Is there web comics as well on here in web series?
Yeah, there is. The homepage actually, like, it is entirely curated and refreshed weekly. Our, you know, Kevin and Kat and our community team do an amazing job of reading through and like finding comics that are all over the place, right? Like it's not, you know, it's not just about big names. It's about finding cool stories, kind of regardless of who has written them and made them, and like surfacing that, you know, living into this idea that we're helping everyone find an audience and everyone find fandom. beyond, like just repurposing the things that are, like always get the same level of attention, right?
So is this do you manually have to update this yourself, or is this based off of like my searches, like my information, like the cookie, like cache type stuff?
When you start reading and when you start following people, like if you go up and like click follow on a couple of creator boxes up there, you'll see that like there's based on people that you follow that starts showing up in one of the sections. And as you start reading, it'll be like continue reading. And then like as you read more, it'll start being suggested for you, like those will be sections in there. And so like there's a mix between like our home section and what will be our kind of like home section in the app is a mix between personalized by you and curated by us. Right? Like that's kind of how we describe that discovery section. And then like, in the comics section, if you click in there through the navigation, that's like your choose your own adventure section, right? Like it's all of the filters you could possibly imagine. Oh,
wow. And then like right up here, I see the comics, graphic novels, the manga. Yeah.
Right. Like, shared by, creators or publishers, free or paid, right? Like vertical scroll comics or traditional print layout, whether or not they're crowdfunding now or were successful in the past. And then
showing this audience too. Wow. You really did get as in depth as humanly possible with it. I love it.
We're trying to make it so that, the more books that we get, the harder it is to surface things on the edges, right? And so we need to make sure that our discovery and that our like filter system can keep up with the insane depth of comics that is coming into our system.
Here's another one of my buddies right here too, Sam from Raz. So how do you do that with discoverability? Discoverability can be such a tricky and slippery slope, it feels like. I know we were talking about Twitch earlier, like that discoverability on that platform is almost essentially non-existent now. So like, what are you guys doing to make sure like these books don't get buried and everything?
Well, some part of it is the slicing and dicing, right? Like click on anthropomorphic, for example, like in the left there under theme.
Under theme?
Yeah, like down a little bit more. Let's see like
oh, right here. Yep.
And then like click on popular. Top right.
Top right. Here's another one of my good friends, DC Horn. Yeah, I'm seeing everybody I know left and right. I love it. It's so awesome. So we are on that theme and then popular. So this is popular within the last 30 days.
Yep. And like, you can choose whatever time frame that you want to, right? And so it's about how do we make a combination of filters that surfaces quality, right? And it's not too hard if you have a lot of filters. It's very hard if you don't have any filters at all, right? Like take certain other platforms that are like, well, there's only their genres, but then they also like let the books be in multiple genres. And so it's impossible to say, well, this was most popular in this genre, because like it's also in 3 other ones or whatever.
Yeah,
and there's no like sub-filtering, like themes and art styles and like these types of things. And so when you get such a limited amount of views, it's much harder to surface like different stuff.
I love the selection. You weren't joking. You really do have probably close to 11,000 plus comics on here. Oh my God. We have Michael T. Gonzalez saying he'll be uploading his book soon, Rainy Road Comics. We have J. Michael Miller, both on YouTube, by the way, saying his preview for his comic is on GlobalComix as well. Yeah, let's check that out. Let's see if we can look it up real time.
It's so fun to see.
That's so cool. And like right here, you can see how many views they got, and you can read, you can like, add to list.
If you click into it, you get into the reading experience itself. And
16 pages for free too.
Reading experience is really quite fun. You can customize it kind of a lot.
And you could do, what do you think? I like this as well. Oh, you leave a comment as well. Okay. And I'm assuming reactions and comments help get this post more visible within the algorithm.
It goes into the popularity algorithm. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw my boy an upvote.
So if you want to go to like the next page, you can use your left-right arrows. You can click on the right side of the page to go forward, and left side of the page to go back.
I love that so much. Other pages I hate where you have to like refresh, or you have to literally go back on the screen to do it. So it's nice that you can do it that way too.
And then if you scroll all the way up, this is my favorite new feature that we added. Click on the little like gear icon in the top right. And then click on double page.
Oh, let's go. I don't think I've ever seen a site do this. I think they're always single pages.
Yeah, like we have a smart little algorithm that kind of tries to line up spread pages as they were designed in books. And so there's two ways that a page can become a spread. One is that it's actually just a single image that's a spread. And the other is where there are two pages that are like actually cut in the middle, and we'll line them up. My favorite example, if you can go and search in the search bar and type in Waldin, Waldin, and then go into the first one there.
Right here?
Yeah. So now we have the double page mode on. So you can go to the next page.
Oop, wait, I did next release.
Yep. Next page. Next page. Like this.
Okay, so this is like a splash.
Two images. No. This is two images. They just
wow.
They cut it, but like we detected that and we're gluing them together. If you go and like do view single page mode, you will see it as a single page mode in the same way that you'd see it on a phone.
Oh, that is insane. Yeah, I thought it was a splash at first. Yeah, that is awesome.
So like, like we're trying to do what we can to make reading comics digitally as exciting and as pleasurable as we can, getting closer to the physical thing of having, like. I
don't even want to do single page anymore. I want to do double. Yeah, we have
that became my favorite one too. I gotta admit.
We have J. Michael Miller saying he didn't know you could choose double pages. Eric Tapper saying you have a significant degree of customizability in your reading experience, and then Art Crumb saying it's super awesome to be able to read double pages. Some of the art truly deserves a double page spread. I can agree. Like right here, this is gorgeous, and I think this is like with the double pages looks remarkable. This is awesome. I think I don't think I've ever really seen any sort of thing that I've ever read online have this option available.
It was something that we saw people care deeply about in February. There was some, controversy on the internet with like choices that were made on other platforms. And we were like, well, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. And so here we are, right? So now we have, 2K resolution spreads. And
real quick, right here, we came to the first locked segment. So we got the first couple pages for free, the first 8 pages for free. Now, in order to read the next 31, we need to continue reading with Gold. So what is the GlobalComix Gold?
GlobalComix Gold is your monthly subscription. It's $7.99. You sign up, you pay once, and then you can read everything that's behind a paywall. The cool thing about Gold is that this subscription is only distributed amongst the owners of comics with paid comics that you have read during your subscription period. Which means it's not like all subscriptions go into a giant pot and then it's divvied up. It's actually only divvied up amongst the people whose content that you read, right? And so if you want to like specifically only support one creator and you don't want to read anything else, if you only read that person's comics, they get your entire subscription.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. How are you able to do that? Like, that just seems like it would be so intense to do that with like 1,000, 2,000 plus creators on the site at any given time.
Well, it's really kind of simple. Actually, we keep track of every page that a user reads, and we like keep track of the first instance of it. So like if you read the same page 50 times, it doesn't count, right? Like prevent, abuse and spam and like scripts and whatever. And then at the end of your subscription, we say, well, which pages did you read? And then we say, which owners were that? What's the percentage of like pages to owners? And then split your subscription. It's a pretty simple math equation.
So is this the only type of subscription tier that you have right now, or do you have any others available?
At this time, this is like the primary subscription tier. If you like, we can show off the donation. Actually, if you click on this guy, you'll kind of like see what that looks like.
Continue reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty straightforward, right? Like you can pay yearly or you can pay it monthly.
Is it cheaper doing the yearly? Uh-oh, did I freeze?
I guess I'll see.
All right, we're good. Did you freeze?
The video seems frozen.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. It's working now. It froze for a little bit though. Hold on, that was weird.
I'm still looking at the modal with the.
It might take a few seconds for it to boot up on the other end. You know what I mean? There we go. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, because we're still live. I'm still green. The video is still frozen on the other end of it, but the video on my end is good. So we'll just wait a few seconds for this to clear up on.
Are you still looking at the gold modal on the screen?
Yeah. What I'm talking about is my actual live stream video.
Oh, I see.
So our actual stream on YouTube, our videos froze. It's live now. This is so weird. It's like frozen on my restream thing. Let me refresh that real quick. I think we're good though. That was, yeah, I don't know. It's too much hype. Okay, we're good. It's active. It's good. It's live. So yes, we are back on the gold. And I think the question I was asking before we froze it up was if it's cheaper to do the yearly compared to the monthly.
It is. It's $7.99 for the monthly, and like $89.99 for the yearly. So you get just about an extra month. And the cool thing is you can actually like give subscriptions to others. If you click the little gift cards in the bottom, it's kind of the same thing, but you get a code with a token.
Oh, that is so cool.
Give that to a friend.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Give comics to someone, right? Like,
I don't think a lot of sites do this either. The ability to gift. What type of information do you need to have in order to gift them that subscription?
You're looking at it right there. It's credit card number, like expiration, that type of stuff. And then you place the order.
How do you make sure it gets to the right person though? Do you need like their email or anything?
You already have an account, and so when you make this purchase, you get an email that says, "Here's your gift card. Here's the code, etc."
No, wow, that is awesome. Yeah, that's easy. That is easy. Wow, this is cool. So we are looking at the comics. You said talent was another one that was worthwhile to look at, correct?
Yeah, the creator section in the talent.
Or creator. All right. So we'll go to the creators
first, like real quick. While the comics like browsing is about like finding comics, all of the same kind of filters that we have on finding comics, you can find creators and publishers, right? And so this is about finding people to follow. It's about the people or the teams behind comics. And so you can say, like if you, in the theme section there, click off Cyberpunk, for example. Now you're looking at, creators and publishers that make comics that, are in the cyberpunk. And so you can use this as a way to discover people to follow and comics.
And how many comics they've dropped, how many releases they've had. Now, what's this mean in releases compared to comics?
A release is a book, but in the webcomic world, right? Like a release can be 1 or 2 pages also. We had such a long conversation when we were making GlobalComix, right? Like, do we call these things issues? Do we call them chapters? Do we call them books, right? Like, and because, we're like, well, we got to keep in mind strips. We got to keep in mind webcomics. And then, like the vertical scroll thing became episodes. And we're just like, people are releasing comics out to the world. We'll call them releases, right?
Yeah. No, that is so cool. And, it really, so I would say if you're doing this, you would want to be as descriptive with your tags as humanly possible. Is that something you would recommend?
Yeah, both on like your bio and for your comic synopses, right? Like make yourself interesting. Make your comics interesting, right? Like a little description goes a long way when the first impression is, an avatar or a logo and like a name and a text. People make decisions based on that text in that context.
Yeah, you're 100% right. You have to really focus on selling yourself with your imagery and description. as much as your book sells itself, because they're all selling points.
Yeah,
this is so awesome. I love this because I'm seeing so many people that I've worked with or talked to, like within this, like or bought from. Like I've purchased stuff from SourcePoint Press, so it's cool to see them on here.
We love SourcePoint Press. They are an amazing team. We actually spent the better part of a weekend in Orlando, hanging out with them. We partially shared booth with them, and like, man, hearts go out to that team.
This is awesome. So outside of comics and creators, you said talent was the next one that we should be checking out.
Talent is what we call the talent marketplace. If you have been on Facebook or Reddit or Twitter in the last couple of years, you will see people saying, so-and-so type of creator looking for work. Here's a link to my portfolio. Mm-hmm. And usually, like on Facebook groups, that's a big thing, and on Reddit, places like Comic Book Collabs, etc. The big problem with those locations is that you can't really search and filter it, right? Like if you are someone that is looking for work or is looking for people, you want to have a proper kind of like repository and database where you can like say, here's my skill sets, here's my prices, here's what you can, hire me for, and here's examples of my work. Mm-hmm. That's what the talent marketplace is. So, like if you click in on any of these things here, like you'll see a little blue tag that says for hire, for example. Mm-hmm. Take number 2 there. I haven't actually looked at this one, so I don't really know exactly.
You want me to check this one out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what we're going to see, but like, let's see. So this is kind of like the page for this person's listing, and it'll have like a little description, synopses, and as you scroll down, it's about this is me, right? Like you mm-hmm. can hire this person. If you were to click this button like commission, then you can start an interaction with them, and we kind of manage. Well, first you kind of gotta set up your profile, but if you skip that for now, and so it's kind of like you can kind of request them and give the right level of information, like, hey, I'm looking to make mm-hmm. XYZ. I'm looking for you to like use your skills. I'm interested in you because like your prices are blah blah blah. In this case, this person didn't list out their rates, but you can, right? And so then we like take care of that entire application / commission flow with like direct messaging and conversation.
We'll check out the one. This one has rates, so we'll check this one out. So right here, letter for 5 to 15 per page. So this is another one where yeah, I know Kyler too. Kyler, I actually interviewed, and I'm getting ready to interview again for his upcoming Kickstarter. This is so cool, just seeing all these people that I know on here. I'm open for any kind of lettering work. I'm available for logo and design work as well, and then you can commission him. And it's cool. Yeah, this is awesome. And then this is just as in depth as the other ones, where you can kind of just like, if you're looking for a cover artist, you can just click this. Yeah, it is. It really is. We have Eric over on YouTube saying talent marketplace is the friends you make along the way, and that it's such a small world. It really is. Yeah, this is so awesome.
So this is, like we're living into this idea that making comics there's a lot that happens before you actually have a book to publish. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to help creators find teams, find work, make money outside of just publish your own stuff.
Oh, you have writers as well. So do you have reviews, or is this just little updates?
So this is like the GlobalComix news feed. Basically, we put in like every week, we curate comics, we post news out, we make announcements, we interview creators. Kat on our community team has this series called Creator Tips and Tricks, where she's going through and kind of like, when you are creating comics, here's information about margins, here's information about perspectives, mm-hmm. like all these kinds of really good and helpful pieces to help creators, understand and level up. And
this is like a hub. This is literally like a hub, like all in one. If you're looking to be a comic creator. Oh, Art Crumbs is Kat. Okay. It's nice to put the name behind the YouTube. We also have Oscar over on YouTube saying this is a fantastic tool for self-publishers. I've been really impressed with how easy it is to upload and manage my content. I'm looking forward to seeing where you take this in the future. Yeah, I'm just loving this. I'm so happy that we had a chance to break this down, because you know, at first I was like, seems like a really cool platform to put your comics on, but it's so much more than that. Like, this is a tool. It's like the whole thing is a tool. You can get your creative team here. You can learn how to be better at what you do here. Like, what is there that what aren't you offering here, Chris? Like, that's the better question, right?
We don't have a mobile app yet. Later on this year, you know, then we'll be like as much end to end as we can in the short term. There's, you know, like, I want this localization tool to be part of this, and like the talent marketplace will obviously connect into that, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's gonna be so dope. I'm so much looking forward to that.
We have J. Michael Miller saying it looks like it's grown a lot in the last 3 to 6 months, or that maybe he didn't look hard enough when he tried it before. And then Art Crumb saying you've definitely grown, still growing, lots of good stuff coming. Yeah, this is so awesome. So before we end this, is there anywhere in the site that you want me to check out next that we haven't had a chance to kind of put a spotlight on?
The last page I'd like suggest people look at is the publish page. This is the page for creators and publishers to start publishing. It'll give you all the information that you need to know about the platform, and it answers most of your questions around the publishing part itself. Mm-hmm. Right, like if you kind of like scroll down a little bit, like it gives you a little bit of an overview of the GlobalComix platform, right? Like we know that it takes about 5 minutes for people to read a book. We know that it takes about 10 pages for people to want to like read through a full page floppy. And you know, like we know that when you're doing single issues, 2 to 3 issues free preview is a good place to like hook people for digital. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, it kind of walks through how the publishing process works. You know, you create a profile, you upload your series, you put your metadata in, and then you publish. And you can be live within 5 minutes. If you have a PDF, you can drag that in and we'll accept that. If you have, you know, like all the pages as PNGs or JPEGs, you can upload those. And we just kind of auto format everything. There's no size constraints. And as the rest of the pages kind of like goes through, well, this is how you make money. Here's what the revenue shares are. Here's how you get paid, right? Like we use Stripe and PayPal to pay people out depending on where in the world you are. And, you know, a little bit more about what's there on GlobalComix for you as a creator.
This is remarkable. Like, if you don't mind me asking, it seems like you take such a small cut. Like, how are you guys able to stay afloat? Like, you guys are literally maximizing the revenue for the creator. It just seems, you know, with taking such a small cut, do you run into like any issues like with hosting fees or anything like that?
Well, I mean, building a platform like us like ours has a bigger upfront cost than, for example, you know, just building a comic store and like needing to go into the black like very quickly. Yeah. And so, you know, like our model is predicated around we raise money in order to like get this to a place where it's sustainable. And it's a factor of like economics at scale, right? For us. And so where we are now is we're still in the growth phase where, you know, we're still in the red as a business, but creators are not. Right? Like there are creators that are making decent amounts of money off of this already. And that's just kind of how it needs to be, right? Like we need to make this something that is worthwhile for the content creators in order to, you know, attract them in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, just being a content creator myself and working on platforms that you get paid, your payout method is even like some of the cheapest minimums I've ever seen. You know, on Twitch alone, it's $100 to get paid out. Yours is a $30 minimum. That is just remarkable. You guys really are like trying to like get the creator, you know, making as much of a profit as humanly possible. And I think people in the chat are saying it the best. You know, Eric saying creator success equals our success, and then Art Crumb saying rising toad floats all the boats. You know, I think that is a really good phrase for what you guys are doing.
We try. We really try.
And then right here's how you improve sales as well. Sell more through your online store or superpower your crowdfunding as well. And you know, I've seen that as well with Decay. We'll pull that up right here. Crowdfunding now. So like even like if they're crowdfunding, they have an extra little thing Do you have that in the theme as well?
In the filters, like look up a little bit, it says crowdfunding.
Oh,
So
yeah, active campaign. Okay, this is so cool. Yeah, let's check out the cake. Mature content warning. So that's cool too. You give a little warning as well. And then, so this is where you would, right at the bottom, so right where you would go to see the next release, or to scroll over, you have the back the project right here. Yeah, that's so awesome. All right, well, I think we came to the spot where we'll start wrapping it up. This was such an awesome breakdown, Chris. I really appreciate you bearing with me while we did the troubleshooting earlier.
Oh, hey, anytime. Like
it was worth it. It was worth it going live. It was 100% worth it going live. The chat interaction we had was just so. Chris, for anyone out there that is kind of hesitant about putting their book on GlobalComix for whatever reason that may be, what would you like to say to them to kind of help push them over that barrier to get them to come on your site?
There's literally no reason to not be on GlobalComix. Like there's only upsides for you. We've minimized the amount of time that it takes for you to get online. It's not a lot of effort. You can control exactly where your paywall is. If you want to give things away for free, you can do that. If you want to paywall it, you can do that. If you want to, work on a community and like donation building environment, you can do that, right? Like, you will get out exactly as much as you put in. And so at some point, right, like you put the books on and we have our app out live and there's, hundreds of thousands of daily users just kind of like going through. You want to be discoverable there. And the earlier that you can get your content onto the platform, the more our algorithms will have time to like build up an identity and an understanding of who you are and what your content's like, so that you'll start showing up, from day one when the app is live.
That is so cool. I love that too, that you're still in the early stages, so you still have time to kind of get in before the hype starts to blow up and starts to build up that bubble. Now, on to our very last question. And I think this one is something that I'm really excited to hear from you. For anyone that's out there that's looking to take, a passion or an idea that they have and just hit the streets running with it to get it off the ground, what type of advice would you give them to help them get that passion to stay afloat?
It's really like you're going to experience so many setbacks, and you're going to experience that there are so many things that you didn't know. And it's like, oh man, I got to do this other thing and this other thing and this other thing and this other thing. Right. And like when you're making comics, you're probably going to come into that from a perspective of like, well, I really enjoy, or I'm really good at, or, I want to draw and like tell stories. If you want to be like a monetarily successful creator, you kind of need to think beyond that, right? Like you got to think about who are you as an identity? How are you relatable to the fans that come to follow you? How are you marketing yourself? How are you, making sure that when you're sharing things online, that it has the lowest barrier to entry, right? Like I was talking about, at the start of this interview, link directly into a chapter versus, the comic page. And really, like, you got to be really tenacious, right? Like, success does not happen overnight. Success is almost always a result of an incredible amount of tenacity.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the head right there. For even what I did, you are interview number 63. I've done 60 interviews probably in the last 3 months, because I love this. What you do is kind of exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help indie comic creators get a platform, a voice, to make it loud. Just not on the scale that you're doing, because holy crap, this is remarkable. I love what you're doing. We have Eric saying, and a whole lot of caffeine as well. And yeah. Cheers to that. Drink it. The timing on that. But guys, I think this is a perfect time for us to wrap it up. It is a nice rainy and gloomy Thursday, and I need to start getting ready for work. Christopher, I appreciate you coming on and just breaking down every single question that I had, and giving us more of a inside look at GlobalComix. It's been such a remarkable time, guys. I appreciate all of the activity and the hype and chat as well. Hope you guys have an awesome day, but most importantly, keep it geekly.